There is no power of the people because there is nothing visible called a people. There is no class of things that is homogeneous or even similar enough in its particulars to constitute a single class of things called we the people. This fictitious claim that all people can be combined into one thing, that share a voice or have at least one identifier in common, has led to a dilution of power for those who ought to exercise it. Power dispersed is power lost. To attribute power to the people is to deny power to those who create the elements of power. Whom are these people to whom power is attributed? By democratic right. If there is a we the people, why are there different parties in a nation that becomes more and more divided? If we the people have power, how is it measured and exercised? We the people is not a monolithic being with a single mind or set of values. To what is this power compared to, and to what is it attributed? A thing that does not exist cannot exercise power. If the power of the people reflects the numbers of people who exist on the planet or in a nation, this is a weak and unreliable foundation. Does a herd of cows have power or a herd of gnus? The power of the people, if based on the sheer numbers of persons, is especially ironic given the division we see in the country and the world. It is obvious to any thinking person that power, if it is to be effective, must be concentrated. The power of the people, were it to exist, must be a feature of a class of thing called we the people. But for we the people to exist, we the people would need to exercise a visible power. But the question always is, exercise what power over what? What is there but people? What power do we have over ourselves? But the more diverse the group, the less able the group when formulating policy. A much smaller group of men sharing the same views and skills is more powerful than 10 times their number that share nothing. The power of the people is best demonstrated when faced with organized resistance in the form of police or military forces. Even if the mob wins, it is at the mercy of a small cohesive set of policymakers, who will stop at nothing to wrest power from the masses. This has proven to be the case in every revolution and rebellion. This is not to suggest there are not a lot of things called people. This is not to say that individually, we do not have power. It is not to say, if the mob becomes agitated, it is not capable of much damage. But if we are talking about power as a creative force, the mob lacks the will to do much beyond wreaking havoc on their own neighborhoods. We the people is far too diverse to be productive. Indeed, the only thing that unites people of diverse backgrounds is free stuff. If a politician offers free benefits, the power of the people will be most visible in the urge to be a free rider. The talk we are having here, to summarize, regards the proposition that the people have power and that this power is significant. The power of the people is said to be a power available to the group that is known of as the people. This proposition, it is argued here, is patentably absurd. If there was a group of things called people with power, there would be no need for police or government. If there was a group of things called people, they would have a common identity, beyond the desire to enjoy a free ride. If the people had power, the physical dissimilarities would not be such a potent cause for division. Whatever power is attributed to the people has no application, because the power is directed inwards at the very people who are said to have power. The very attribution of power to this group is in reference to other members of this group, namely those in government. But in the end there are at least two and probably more groups of people, all who hate each other. The power of the people is said to exceed the power of government. This also is an absurd position. The power of government is the power of its supporters. What use has the people's power to defeat government, other than its ability to create a new government? The only power the people have, is the power to create government. The only power a government has is to create a constituency. Indeed, the more power the people have, the stronger government it can create. But this is only because the power of the people is really the power of the majority. Weak people create weak governments because their governments begin to reflect the divisions amongst the people. The fact is, we the people have the power to concentrate our power in a small number of persons called the government. We have the power to transfer our individual power into a representative collective. The electorate has the power to assign their power to a representative, creating a creature with power of attorney called the state. Many observers have remarked how little impact the individual vote has on the outcome of an election. Apologists for the system note that while millions vote in an election, it is often won by just a few votes. Even though millions of votes are cast for different candidates, all these votes cancel each other out. The victory of one means more voted for a particular person than the others. Given that the government is decided by an election, every vote matters in deciding who has the largest number of votes. Yet, it is the exception that proves the rule. The winning vote matters, but that winning vote only matters because it is really a composite of millions of votes. In the end, the only power that the voter expressed was the power to invalidate one vote cast by another voter. If the power of the people is expressed in casting the winning vote or in canceling all votes cast by other contenders, then the power of the people is best expressed by its power to defeat the will of some other people. Meaning there is no will of the people, only the will of the voting majority, and that is distilled down to the one vote that gave the winning party its majority. The power of the people is a concept that best refers to a politician's desire to get elected, knowing he or she must get more votes than the opposition candidates. Yet, this power of the voter ought not be denied when comparing a democracy to an autocracy. But if we go this far and make this concession, ought we not also move on to comparing a tyranny of the majority to meritocracy? What happens when people must earn their position? And how do they earn a position if lying is not permitted as a strategy? If we listen to politicians, it is clear they each pander to a certain segment of the population. This is the segment who has the greatest incentive to vote. To put it another way, a person who sees little need for government and who requires nothing from government is less likely to vote. Nor will they be motivated to participate in the electoral process. But someone who wants free education, free medical, free time off, free abortions and so on, will be highly motivated to do what it takes to get the candidate promising these things elected. If a candidate ran on a platform of promising nothing to no one, he would not get elected and might not even get 100 votes. But a large number of persons would be better off voting for him than the candidate who promised a list of free benefits. Here we see the issue concerning the power of the people narrative. We are either all paying for what we get, which minimizes the need for politicians, or we are voting to get free stuff. It is not difficult to understand whom politicians will pander to the most. In politics, it is the candidate who is the most willing to promise the most free stuff who will get the parasitic vote. Merit in politics is defined by votes obtained and no other factor. It is immaterial how the votes are obtained. The power of the people is the power of a politician to attract voters with promises. Without this power of the politician to give the people free things, the power of the people is neutralized. So, ultimately the power of the people is the power of the politician to energize freeloaders. He is basically a pig caller calling the pigs to the trough. Of course, the imagery of politics has always been the politician engaging in graft to enrich himself, but the truer picture is of the pig farmer calling his pigs to feed on the chow they never worked for. If there is a power of the people, it is the power of the most politically active to get a free meal at the expense of a less powerful but harder working, marginalized class of independent-minded person.